He hadn't planned to come home that weekend. A cancelled seminar and a missed train led him to take the last bus back to the quiet house he hadn't visited in months. His father didn't know. It was meant to be a surprise. He remembered how the garden used to be his retreat after lectures, how the kitchen smelled of burnt toast and cheap coffee. But stepping inside now, something felt different. The air was still, almost calculated. His dad's car wasn't in the driveway. No sound came from the TV, no radio humming from the kitchen. Only the faint scent of lavender mixed with wine. He walked in slowly, careful not to startle anyone. On the side table by the couch was a half-empty wine bottle and 2 glasses, one with a smudged lipstick mark. That would have been normal if his father was home. But he wasn't. His brow furrowed. A man's shirt, not his father's, lay crumpled near the hallway entrance, collar damp like it had been worn recently. He picked it up, unsure why. A strange wave of discomfort curled in his gut. It wasn't just confusion, it was instinct. Something wasn't right. He set his bag down quietly and moved toward the hall, where the bathroom door was slightly ajar but quickly shut from the inside. A woman's laugh, low and throaty, echoed behind the door, followed by a man's chuckle, young, confident. He froze, pulse rising. That voice didn't belong to his father. There was no mistaking it. He took a step back, carefully pressing himself against the wall. Inside he could still hear muffled talking, water running, then silence. His hand tightened around his phone. He didn't knock. Didn't ask questions. Just stood there listening as the minutes passed like hours. The realization washed over him with an intensity he hadn't anticipated. His stepmother. She was inside laughing with another man. The woman who used to help him with his homework, who once called him her other half, when his father was too busy for family dinners. His chest ached with something between nausea and disbelief. He remembered moments she hugged him longer than necessary, brushed his cheek gently, smiled at him like he was more than just her husband's son. He always dismissed it, always buried the discomfort. Now he couldn't. He walked away from the door, his footsteps silent on the wooden floor. It felt like his own home had become a stranger's. He knew confronting them now would cause a scene, and he wasn't sure he had the strength. Instead, he grabbed his phone and quietly tapped the record button. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. If this was what it looked like, then nothing would ever be the same again. Not his relationship with her, not with his father, not with the house he used to call safe. The door behind him stayed closed. But something inside him had already burst open. The door clicked open and he barely moved, staying pressed behind the hallway edge. Out of sight but with a clear view of the hallway mirror. The reflection gave him everything he needed. First, the man. Mid to late 20s, towel slung around his waist, casually checking his phone. Athletic build, dark stubble, definitely not his father. The man didn't look nervous, just unaware, like he belonged there. He walked away without hesitation, exiting through the back without noticing anyone had been home. Then came her. His stepmother emerged moments later in a thin robe, damp hair clinging to her shoulders, cheeks flushed. She didn't look guilty. She looked content. That disturbed him more than anything. She padded toward the kitchen, humming softly. He followed at a distance, still undetected. There was no sign of concern in her manner. She poured herself more wine, leaned against the counter, and texted someone. Probably him. The same man who had just left. She smiled to herself, then sipped the glass with a sigh of satisfaction. It struck him how routine it seemed. No panic, no cleanup, just comfort in her rhythm. It wasn't the first time. He was sure of it now, and it made his stomach turn. He watched her for another minute, unsure what he was waiting for. A sign of remorse? Fear? Regret? None came. She moved with the ease of someone who felt entirely in control of her world. The dissonance between the version of her he knew and the one he was now watching was unbearable. She used to tell him he reminded her of his father, that he had his eyes, his voice. The implications of that compliment hit him differently now. He moved back to the stairwell quietly, hands shaking. He scrolled through his phone's gallery, pausing over pictures from the past year. There they were, family barbecues, holidays, birthdays. His dad's arm around her, her smile beaming toward the camera, his own face in the background, always just on the edge of the frame. He wondered how many of those moments were already tainted. Had she been seeing this man then? Had she been lying to all of them? It wasn't just betrayal. It was performance. A carefully maintained illusion. A memory returned without invitation. Last winter, the furnace had gone out and she had pulled him close under a blanket, saying she didn't want him to freeze. Her hands had lingered on his shoulders. At the time, he had chalked it up to her warmth, her maternal side. But now he didn't know what to make of it. What had been innocent and what hadn't? He didn't trust any of it. She called his father as he listened from the top of the stairs. Her voice was light, cheerful, as if nothing had happened. She asked when he'd be home, said she missed him. The deception in her tone was flawless.
No cracks. No tensión.
The kind of lie that came from practice, from habit. He realized then that his father had no idea. None. And if he confronted her now, it wouldn't be justice, it would be chaos. And yet doing nothing felt just as unbearable. He deleted the recording from earlier but kept the image burned in his mind. Dinner was quiet, but not in the usual way. His father had come home carrying lilies, her favorite. She greeted him with the same practiced kiss, the same embrace that now looked like a performance. Watching them together made his skin crawl. She smiled, asked about his day, complimented his tie, touched his hand lightly as she served the meal. There was no flicker of guilt in her eyes. Only the same warmth she'd always used to cover her tracks. He couldn't look at her the same way anymore. Everything she said sounded scripted. Every word felt calculated. He barely touched his plate. The food tasted like sawdust. His father didn't notice, too wrapped up in her. They laughed about a joke from work, and she played along, giggling in that same tone he'd heard behind the bathroom door. It wasn't a new laugh. It was just used differently depending on who she was trying to charm. He studied them both, wondering how long this farce had been going on. Was it weeks? Months? Years? He watched his dad lean in and whisper something that made her blush. That same blush had probably warmed someone else's skin just hours earlier. The thought made his stomach churn. He excused himself early and went to his room, closing the door quietly behind him. There, surrounded by photos and books from his childhood, he felt completely detached. The room hadn't changed, but he had. Nothing in this house felt safe now. Every corner held the weight of a lie. He sat on the edge of the bed and tried to make sense of it all. The betrayal wasn't just hers, it felt like his own. He had seen something he wasn't supposed to see, known something he didn't ask to know, and now he carried it alone. He thought about telling his father. The truth clawed at his chest, demanding to be let out. But the image of his dad at the dinner table, full of life, made him pause. Would it help? Or just destroy him? The man had already lost a wife once. His biological mother. Would this break him for good? He wasn't sure he wanted to be the reason for that. Yet silence felt like complicity. Every second he said nothing, she kept winning. She got to live without consequence. She got to smile at both of them, and pretend her world wasn't rotten underneath. His phone buzzed. A message from her. You looked upset tonight. Everything okay? Just that. No fear, no confession, just a soft push, like a feeler to see how much he knew. He stared at the text for a long time. She knew. She had seen something in his eyes, maybe a crack in his mask. But she wasn't worried. She thought he'd stay quiet. That's how she operated, with quiet control. He didn't respond. He couldn't. There was nothing to say that wouldn't explode the fragile glass world they were all pretending to live in. He put the phone down and lay back, staring at the ceiling. He didn't cry.